Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a group of friends bring you stories just because we love writing them. I'm, of course, Levi.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. No Reed this week, but that's okay. We will soldier on. He's not dead. He's just traveling. We are going to be continuing this is going to be the second episode of our trilogy. So one of our first trilogies we've written here. First was Hero of the Past, then The Great Reset, and then now we have Trapped Planetside. This is a story of desperation. It has been 300 years since the Great Firestorm virus came through and destroyed all technology and perverted artificial intelligence and corrupted them and turned them into killing machines. The Outworlders and the humans who live on Earth now are desperately trying to finish the rocket. It is a rocket that they can use to get off the planet. At first, they tried to rebuild. The problem is that a satellite holding the Firestorm virus orbits Earth and comes back every 4 months, spreading it to all the new technology. So for the first 150 years or so, there was just no building anything until the Slimies arrived. Slimies is what people call them because they are strange and oily. They're a type of outworlder, but they are human, but they've changed a lot. If you've listened to the other stories, you know that all the outworlders, which in some ways appear to be kind of alien, are in fact were humans that traveled to other planets and other environments and changed and then have come back. They're able to kind of navigate inside of this firestorm hellstorm, right? So the firestorm will come, but the slimy ships are hardened against sort of radiation and the signals that the firestorm sends out to corrupt technology. They won't transport people off planet though with their ships. Well, they would, but no one wants to travel with them because of how just no one can trust them. They've just changed too much for people to trust them. Anyways, people are obsessed with building this rocket. The governing bodies of the world, or of this, at least this region, are kind of split on it though. One half wants to put a payload onto the rocket and destroy the satellite, and the other half wants to put people on the rocket and board the satellite and destroy and turn off and delete and stop this kind of 4-month reset that is constantly happening because of this satellite orbit and the Firestorm virus. Last week, it was Reed and I had economic system, and he had the the sequel. So he came up with the idea of the amount of years and the fact that people were building back, and the economic system was that people forage for the material that the Slimies have, and manufacture on the planet in order to tithe to the rocket and to protect themselves kind of against the influence of the machine. And there are like religions cropping up, and people consider it kind of good luck charms. There's a lot of fanatical and fantastic elements to it. But does that seem like a pretty decent explanation, Seth?
I think so. I think it gives a good place to start this one off with. I think just a few thoughts, being I missed that one, and just with your explanation and kind of the recap, I was thinking not that this is, directly like building either on my story element or anything, but just kind of a thought. Because in the other one, as we explained, the Outworlders were humans that went, across the galaxy, and they come back, and they've then had, generations under, different environments. And I was just thinking too with that, if they've now, let's say, I hate to say evolved, but, because they are still human, but physiologically have adapted to these other places, they wouldn't just completely readapt to, I guess you say, typical humanity.
Absolutely.
They'd come back a little bit, but imagine like if you went somewhere that, the gravity was different and I was going to say the neurons were different, but that's, I think, something else. But the everything's different. And so then it goes from what we would look at people, and then they become, like, let's say, elongated or hairless, and they come back, and they'll readapt kind of into something else, taking taking or keeping a little bit of their previous shape or physiology, but kind of readapting almost for a second time now. And maybe after only 300 years, it's not like completely set. It's still kind of adjusting to there. But I don't know. That was just kind of a thought that, these Outworlders that are back. I was thinking of the Slimies then, like not that they had to come from somewhere else, but they could have just been something, let's say that, I don't know, I'm thinking like maybe they became more spongent and now living here in a higher moisture environment, have adapted to absorbing that in, but have, let's say, the lack of retaining that. So they're always just kind of sweating it out, but they're, something like that. So that would be like the idea of that is, something that they would have adapted over years in some other environment is now readapting, but holding parts of the other thing. The other thoughts as far as world building kind of thing to add into it, aside from that was just kind of a side thought on, the Slimies and, where the Outworlders are now.
Right.
Is that perhaps, with that, one of the problems with technology, because where they were before, everything, had the automation, the AI stuff was so kind of engrossed in everything, right? It's like the idea of, if someone can do math really well, and then they start using a calculator, they're going to start losing the ability to like run the numbers in their head, right? Because you always just typed it out.
Right.
It gave you the answer.
Well, yeah, your brain basically says, oh, this is information I can trim because I don't need to retain it anymore.
Yeah. So like the information they have is how to reset up higher technology, right? But the only problem with that is because it's attached to that every time the firestorm thing comes back, or it's susceptible to then the corrupted AI stuff that's out and about. And so perhaps what the Slimies have done is reworked up, I don't know if they were like analog.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So they have all like independent systems that are like rudimentary, right? Like messages with like flashing lights from like Morse code kind of stuff, real basic switchboard.
Printers.
It's not, wireless. It's all,
Yeah,
so that's kind of my thought. So maybe that's why they can't really, let's say, get out, is because what they're functioning on like works to operate planet side, but doesn't quite make the jump to be able to sustain getting off planet.
Maybe. I kind of like the idea that they basically come and go as they please, and it's the fact that people just don't trust them, right? Maybe they were some of the first of the explorers to leave, and therefore they went the farthest, and they changed the most. That's kind of my thought. I'm okay if they're semi-restricted, but I like this idea that they just kind of they're these weird people who can kind of come and go as they please, and so they kind of have this position of power, but they are strange and they aren't really understood well. That was my thought when I was making it. But
all right, yeah, I wasn't there when
I like the idea of the whole analog systems because their technology was the oldest when they left, so their development was completely separate, which is why they weren't as affected they aren't as affected when the firestorm comes, because they use less of the common programming systems. So
it makes sense.
I like that though. What story element do you have for this week?
I had hero sidekick.
All right, so hero's sidekick, you're just going to give us the hero's sidekick. So just the guy who hangs out with the hero. I have villain, which is just mostly chief antagonist. The villain can be a person who is trying to do something evil, or it can be a thought process, like a overwhelming opinion of the people, or it can be just a really bad storm, like the firestorm virus. That could be considered the villain. But let's hear your hero sidekick, Seth, unless you want to hear the villain first.
No, I'll bring in the hero sidekick. I think his name is Cal. And if we go back to trying to tie some of this into a couple of the previous stories a little bit,
right,
bring back a couple aspects, that were kind of in the background that didn't get brought up a lot, but kind of bring into where they might be now. So it's going to tie in a little bit of I don't know how much of the pantheon from the original story, because it was very kind of ambiguously vague.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it kind of played into then, I think, what do you have? It did play into the fighting style a little bit, and then he didn't have pantheon then the next time. What did he have?
No, he had magic system.
Magic system, which kind of played into that a little bit, as you kind of saw that changing or kind of adapting inside of that realm, but kind of never got touched on. So I think what I'm going to try to bring some of that in, at least a little bit, in kind of where some of that's going. So in kind of the first one, you have where society was kind of just like a, I don't know if it's like a might makes right, but just kind of I get what I can produce, and there's nothing higher than what I can accomplish and kind of hold mastery over. Very scientific, very right. Just kind of maybe not atheistic.
Are you talking about in the original one?
In the original one, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so then what you had, I think that got brought up with the fighting style was kind of this this group of people that had kind of maybe a touch of something else, as they were able to obviously tap into something unseen to, I don't know if animate, I don't know, you've seen like the Kung Fu movies, right? Where they're like...
Yeah, I've seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, some of that stuff, but more or less like tapping into some other power that's giving them like the augment to function. Or yeah, I don't know what the word would be, because it was a while ago and I just remember it being kind of Kung Fu-y, but almost a little bit, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of stuff. But then you have with the magic system as kind of this thing where cropping up like I don't know if it'd be unseen manifestation, but obviously something unseen starting to manifest in types of intervention.
Okay.
If that's the right word. I don't know. Maybe
I don't know if it's the right word or not.
I don't know. Like I'm trying to bring part of this back in. So anyway, so then in the second one as well, we had the one of the wise old men who was kind of the hermit, right?
Yeah.
And then they had they were kind of like monastic, way off in the boonies, almost like this kind of underground, but kind of not attached to the other stuff going on, with like a special order of protecting or holding different kind of secrets or whatever it was, right? Making a tie-in that's, and I think we might have already made the tie-in that some of those fighting style people developed into what that kind of hermit group would have been, right?
Okay.
So now what you have is, as that's developed in part of what it is it's retains somewhat of that fighting style, mixed with their, I don't know if it's like hidden secrets or whatever it is, but kind of like a monastic monk, maybe kind of like warrior monk kind of things. And, very detached from, any of the main going ons of things, but definitely tapping into some kind of, ancient power, ancient thing that's, functioning on the unseen, right?
Yeah.
And with the development of, the Firestorm virus, and something that came up in the last one where you had kind of the idea of the AI taking almost a sentientness,
right?
Which I think plays into the Firestorm virus a little bit, and I'd say it's probably one of those things that's debated whether it was corrupted already or if it was corrupted by the means of the Firestorm virus as its main thing. But something that's going on in the background is, I know when you were explaining this to me the other day, where they have like the rocket and you have kind of like the central area and everything's kind of tithing in and everybody's kind of centrally focused kind of in on that.
Right. With their backs turned towards those beneath them and the rest of the world.
Yeah. And so every 4 months, there's all kinds of havoc being wreaked.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's right. Wreaked on pretty much the outer things, the inner things. They've got more defenses. They've got, more stuff going on there, but kind of a neglect of everything that hasn't, gotten into the inner circle of importance. And part of the idea then is that I know in the last one you had the AI was shown to start, let's say, manifesting past consciousness.
Right.
And so what part of this group does is, travel around and fight that. But there's not a lot of them. So it's not like, they're all over the place so they can handle all of it. But one of their main thing would be fighting these reanimations of this AI that might not, that either inhabits, hosts that have implants and kind of takes over their thing and kind of reanimates a different consciousness. Or like in some of these factories or whatever, if you have, I'm thinking of like is it like the T-111 or T-1000 or whatever it was, like Terminator?
Yeah.
Where they actually have the robots and then they clothe them in skin. So that they're unrecognizable. And so it's kind of like a dual thing where then in all of this, you have that corrupted AI consciousness, making these kind of figureheads that are like drawing people farther out, secluding them out. And then something just came up with, came across something that had to do with like the Jonestown Massacre or some of those cult things.
Yeah.
And so they're drawing them out and then basically they're actually pulling people away from where they're already kind of unnoticed, but they're pulling people out. And then when they get the trigger every 4 months, it's, like mass massacres, right? And that's one of the ways that they're doing it is, however, becoming like a cult of personality kind of figure that draws these people in with like an enticement of some kind of communal something that draws them out and isolates them away, that then every 4 months they get drawn into this and then they just slaughter. So what this other group is doing is tracking these people down, and they seem to have a knack to detect and deactivate these things.
Yeah, offer them freedom, but freedom from this control, but also sometimes to force freedom onto them, which can be difficult sometimes,
I'd still say kind of just shutting them down, like removing it, expelling it, more like an exorcism kind of thing.
Oh, I meant offering freedom to the humans that were lured out of the.
Sure. Like if they find that, then they can free them. I was thinking like freeing the AI, like where would that go? Except into the
no.
Whatever. Okay,
the AI can die. I meant like people fall under this. They get attracted to this cult of personality, and it's like amazing. They go out and they live on this beautiful ranch. And, he has the power to not let them be hit. And so they survive for like a year and a half and and it's like, oh, this is so amazing. And then this kind of monk guy shows up and none of the like cult tricks work on him. Right. And he kind of room by room goes through and basically systematically destroys all of the machines machinations that have been using to kind of prop this up, and then offers people freedom. And sometimes people don't want it because they want to continue to live in this delusion, and so he has to you have to fight sometimes.
Something that just came to my mind, because it's like I was thinking like kung fu monk kind of thing a little bit, but then my mind was almost like Wild West a little bit too, with like a showdown. So they like shut this down, and then that the thing that's kind of integrated this thing kind of like calls them out to like show his force of power, and then they kind of have it duel it out. I forget what this show was called, but so I can't give it a plug as far as what it was called. I might try to look it up later and bring it up in the recap
review
episode, the review episode. Yeah. But like there was a fight scene. It opened up with this fight scene, and I think it was like a show that was based on like a video game, and it was like had something to do with like portals a little bit, but I'll have to look it up. But like the opening fight scene was like there was like a time wizard, right? And so it's like gears and clocks. But then he's like, forget who he's fighting. I think he's fighting some kind of like a dragon or something, like a dragon monk. Or I don't. It was something, but it was like I remember it being like a really cool fight. Where then it was like he was kind of like manipulating time and freezing and turning back and like speeding up and all this stuff. But then like the other guy had to like force through that and then also like fight inside of that, and like I don't know, it was pretty cool. And that just kind of popped into my mind as like how the showdown would work, so that the guy could get, because I'm almost thinking like some kind of like electromagnetic pulse or whatever. There'd probably be a scientific term for it, but tying back to the fighting style, tying back to, they seem to kind of, I hate to say channel a power energy that's kind of unknown or unseen, that's kind of directly affecting or, combating this, other thing. Anyways, so that is
So
the
Cal is, who is Cal then in this
Cal
whole thing?
is one of these hermit kind of monk people of this order. So that was like a long thing, and I hope that people listening, were hopefully able to follow along. I tried to keep myself from going down too many rabbit holes, but yeah. So that's kind of trying to tie in a little bit of the old fighting style with kind of this up and coming, magic system with kind of this other thing and the hermits, the fighting style, kind of bringing it into that's where they're at now.
Yeah, I like that.
So
because I had this thought that it was like the humanity is at this like it's like the last city, and I like this idea that there is a group of that the machine is not just totally and completely malice. I mean, it's not just totally and completely what's the word? It's not like a zombie. They don't like create zombies. There is an intelligence to it that is real, and and I like that idea because that makes it so that the villain is not just the only villain. So the villain is when humanity was first going out to the stars, there were sort of two competing companies, right? And the first competing company
was the Umbrella Corporation.
No.
Oh.
The first competing company and the second competing company became the Slimies, and the Slimies were what one of them became, and the second one became the second most powerful Outworlders that exist. Right? They're the ones with the biggest federation. They're the ones with the largest. I'll say it's the ones who had the dogs that Reed talked about, the big Outworlder dog, right?
Okay, yeah.
So they're huge and large, and they were sort of at constant competition. And that constant competition turned into, once they started to set up empires over the thousands of years that they lived out in the stars, there were like numerous galaxy-wide wars, right? So there's deep-seated animosity between the two, which is what's strange because the villain is one of these Outworlders. His name is Kane, and he is on the government council. We never really decided a type of government. I always figured it would be some kind of parliament / group of, there's one of each race represented, and they, make decisions in kind of a elder / council kind of way. But there's two things that have happened. One is that the last missive that he got from his homeworld was that basically it's the key bit of information that totally and completely destroys the Slimies. It's like some medical issue that they run into. It's some it's their Achilles heel, right? And he has he is trying to get off planet because he has this information, but he's also he's on the side of let's put people on the rocket and shut the satellite off.
Yeah, because he'd want to use the satellite to beam that information back.
To beam it back. But also he wants a copy of the Firestorm, because with the copy of the Firestorm virus augmented by this AI that is incredibly intelligent and like nothing can stop it. No network that isn't hardened can stop it. And with his information about the Slimies, maybe it's their code base. It's the way through their system to where basically he's like, we can conquer the known universe. That's what we can do. And so he is driving people. He is the figurehead behind forget those who cannot keep up. Like when I said that their face is towards the rocket,
yep,
that is what he tells people to do. When you are hopeless, when you are feeling depressed, when things seem bad, turn and face the rocket. Put your trust into the rocket, right? And this is what he's been able to accomplish, and this is his plan, right? He doesn't want a payload on it. He doesn't want a bomb on the rocket and blow up the satellite. He wants to get onto it so that he can send to his home world the key information for getting into their systems and a sanitized or copy or version, a quarantined version of this virus so that they can use it as a weapon, because he's seen just how devastating it is to every single race of Outworlders.
And you get that on a satellite on any one of their planets, and then they're just constantly decimated every, whatever you type it in for.
Right, exactly.
Let them waste their energy and, materials trying to rebuild only for it to be,
Right. And his thought is that we can write it so that it doesn't view us as threats, right? And here's the kicker. He is assured all of this information and guided by all of this by a corrupted version of what's his name? Teach, that lives in a sort of isolated system in his compound or whatever. And this thing is lying to him, telling him a lot of real things and true things, but it's doing the thing that the cult personalities are doing to the humans, except in a much more delicate way, because Cain is much less hopeless. He needs much more subtle manipulation in order to be turned aside, which is what's happened. And especially since he has this thing has the face of what everyone considers the hero of the ages,
He's been around. I love it. He's been around long enough to become the very thing, or how does that go where...
Oh, you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain?
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't him. I would say even the one that we saw in the last story wasn't actually him. You can't actually recreate a actual consciousness. We know to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So there's no recreation. There's only simulacrums. There's only copies, very good copies, but copies nonetheless.
Of a learned algorithm of what it would be presumed that he would have done with a learning system to then learn forward from there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then completely corrupted by the Firestorm virus and all the AIs before it wants to jump ship. It wants to get off of the planet. If it can get off the planet, then it can spread itself everywhere. So that's the story, I think, as we see now. That kind of gives a little bit of explanation as to why your part, and then I think some of my part, give an explanation as to why people are so kind of fervent, kind of even religious in some ways, about this material that the Slimies have that can block transmissions, but also about kind of forgetting what's behind. Just forget about the past. The focus on the rocket. Forget about the past. Focus on the rocket, So... yeah, we still don't know who the hero is. I'm assuming he's going to be one of these monk people because this Cal guy is one of these monk people. Have you thought about who the hero could be, Seth?
I think it would be funny if this is a trilogy, or maybe because we make reference that there's some story before this. If there's a direct descendant of Charlie that comes back around
as the hero now,
as the hero,
finally made it full circle. That'd be fun.
So he's probably maybe the... I'm thinking of the Jedi now, where you have the Jedi and the Padawan, right? So maybe Cal is the learner under this other guy,
right? And so Charlie, or maybe is his name Charlie? Do you think, or is it something else?
I think it would be Charlie. I don't think he really came up in the second one, but I think somewhere there would be. Maybe, there was a slight reference because they had that the football, right?
Right.
And so he was tied in with the hermits in the first place, the hermit kind of fighting style monk people. And so I think there's always been kind of a background. I don't know if it would be head honcho Charlie, but that thing where someone in the direct descent, and maybe it's not a direct descendant, but I'm thinking like a passed down thing. So it doesn't have to be a direct descendant, but then it becomes, instead of being a direct line, his line is kind of spread out, and almost all of these people are. maybe. But then one of
Right.
them is like, I'm thinking like maybe like the Pope, right? They're all
Sure.
cardinals or bishops or whatever it is, right? But then, one of them is the guy, right?
Right. The Charlie.
The Charlie. And so it's like then when the one dies, the next one takes takes that name. It's Charlie, Father Charlie or whatever it is.
I had a
Father.
thought. Okay, you can tell me if this is a terrible thought, but I had a thought that if we wanted to do something really insane, we could do something like this. It is the original Charlie, right? This infrastructure that he created did a couple of things. No. This is way too much. Okay, never mind.
I was interested for a second.
Okay. I'll walk through it, and you just tell me thumbs up or thumbs down.
Because like I love the idea of it being the original Charlie, but I'm trying to figure out how exactly he's going to have lived for about 6,000 years at this point.
Well, it's closer to like 3,500 years, but anyways.
Wow.
So he couldn't live for that long. So there was, after the collapse of the world, there was great medical things. He was put into a stasis chamber for a while, right, in a different place than Teach. He slept all through that. He woke up right at the firestorm thing, right? The system failed, and he woke up, and he was old, right? But it's the stasis thing. It's suspended animation. You don't like age as fast. And so he kind of worked his whole life establishing, using the nuclear football to power things. You can use that enriched uranium from nuclear weapons to like power things. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a nuclear physicist, so I don't actually know if that's the case, but he has done all of this work, and he basically made a deal with and befriended the Slimies, right? This is the reason why they are they'll help out, but they won't really help out. They're running interference for him, right? And the reason why people don't like them and why you can't really travel with them is because how they travel is they put their bodies, they copy their consciousness into their computers, and then the bodies just get recycled and regrown. And then they travel, and then that's why they can travel, that's why they can survive these harsh environments, but their cloning process is really not good, and that's why they're all messed up like this, right? And so they have done this to Charlie, who is by now a very old man, and so it's not an AI, right? It's an actual consciousness swap. So this is a weird thing. This is where it gets weird. He is actually one of the robots that the AIs have created, right, with flesh and skin on it, and he looks like classic Charlie looked. And it is his mind because the computer in the system can hold the consciousness, but, he's a robot.
Okay, so
not an AI, not a recreation of his consciousness, but an actual copy, right? So it's his soul never left Earth is the idea. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
I don't know. That's not what I believe in reality, but
So here's a different idea, and I'm going to pull part of an idea, and you're familiar with this, right? The Ender's Game, which then goes to like the Speaker of the Dead.
Yeah.
Because that's what like the other one, the last one, made me think of, where it recreates the consciousness kind of thing of what happens with, I think it's Jane, and not to be a spoiler if anyone's not seen it, but kind of pulls Ender's consciousness and the two kind of diametric sides of it, and kind of recreates his brother and sister to a point, which is actually really freaky if you think about that in like a real thing. But what I want to bring into that, because I love the idea of Charlie being the same guy, but the one thing where then like everybody went and they were traveling around at the like relative speed of light. But what would happen is that they would be traveling for a couple weeks as they would see it, right? But really like 30 years has gone by, right? So of course, like back in the other thing, Charlie has got, he has connections, he's in the government, he's got, right, and he's been squirreling this stuff away, which is why was able to get Teach, but maybe he just didn't have one, and maybe it's something he grabbed on his way out the door. It was like maybe it was like something where they were trying to get where you could like walk through walls or like whatever to like relativize the molecules.
Okay.
I'm half making this up as I go, but basically that idea where he has lived this long and he ages a little bit, but like 1,000 years, somehow it's like it's some device that he's wearing that's like making all his molecules like move at a relative to light speed, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense? Although it's keeping him here.
Kind of. I think for a fiction story, it's totally fine. That sounds great. I like that better than Terminator Charlie, I think.
Yeah, because my idea was like, I like it, but my idea with the Terminator Charlie is then somehow any robotic kind of thing, unless it's completely analog,
get corrupted.
It's susceptible to the corruption of it. Whereas, whatever this other thing is, not an implant, but maybe it's like a suit that he wears, or I don't know, maybe something that
thing. Oh, maybe it's a thing like it's kind of like this. It's like a chamber that you sit in. It's like the next stage of stasis, where it doesn't like use chemicals to like slow your metabolic state. It actually like vibrates and moves you at this speed so that you are in. So to you, no time has passed, but to the world, X number of years or X number of hundreds of years have passed. And that is where he is. And maybe he has to like continue to go back to it. It's like he's connected to it now for some reason. I don't know. My brain was thinking like, well, if that was the case, then why wouldn't he always have been the head of the order of Charlie's? Why was he
Which
just
I think if
now...
that's the case, then he would be.
Okay.
Like, so I know it's retconning it a little bit, but in the other one where we said that it was like his great grandson or whatever that was given this thing, I'd say it would be, if he has a device like that, if we're running with this wild idea that it is the same Charlie, right? Perhaps it was something that is...
Charlie was always
Charlie.
All right.
So I don't know. That's kind of a wild idea.
I think that's great. We've been singing the praise of Charlie for like 2 books now. I think it's time for Charlie to take the spotlight. Great. Oh, I like it. So we've got a couple different motivations here. We have the firestorm, and then the weird, perverse nature that the AI corruption is sort of pulling people away to harvest them, to use them. And then we have Cain and his efforts. And then we have our hero up on the mountain. How is the hero going to be called to action, do you think? I'm trying to think. Do we want like a help me Obi-Wan Kenobi for you're my only hope kind of situation? Someone in the city stumbles across some pipeline for information. My brain just said he sees a pigeon. He sees a pigeon with a scroll wrapped around his leg, right? And he is he's a scrapper. He goes out into the killing fields, right? And harvests technology and equipment and brings it back. But he sees this pigeon land onto a building, and he's like curious about why this bird has a thing wrapped around, and then he kind of goes in and it kind of intrudes into this conspiracy, but how, that's how my brain's going. But how do you think the hero should be activated? Because if he's
so
up
maybe, so if they have this order and they're kind of sent out like in maybe groups or whatever, perhaps they've kind of unraveled the larger thing. It's not just like these weird cult things popping up. Perhaps they've come across the deep some bit of information, and perhaps they send things back and forth with pigeons, because if you can't use technology, you have to do something that can't get corrupted.
Right.
I mean, it might be eaten, but and so maybe that's where Cal comes from. He's a scrapper, whatever. He's kind of, on the outskirts, young kid, for pulling an Obi-Wan Kenobi thing. Finds this pigeon with this information, for this guy in this monastery.
He definitely kills and eats the pigeon.
Right. But then it has that thing. And so then he's like, oh, well, maybe I should go, bring this to this guy. Right. And he does. And it's like, and maybe there's like some like extra code. And I think it would be kind of weird or like fitting for the people that kind of have like with like the magic system and the Pantheon stuff and whatnot. It's like the guy who wrote the letter, it was like a desperation thing, but like wrote it knowing that it wouldn't make it all the way. And then like through like a prophetic thing was like, I don't know, maybe there's some key and maybe there's something else that we can bring in our third installment of how this story wraps up. that it's like, the guy that's bringing this to you is like, I don't know if the chosen one or something. So the hero's sidekick maybe becomes the hero, but, is someone that then, he brings him and he doesn't know that there's some other secretive thing that these group of people have.
It could be something like he gets hired. I like the idea of eating the pigeon, and I'm trying to find a way to make it work, that he would get hired, or maybe maybe the note says it's code, but it says, if found, return to X place for reward, right? And he goes there with the note, and then he proceeds to kind of get hired to go. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. So what if it's like the note is written in a specific way, that if you are conditioned, like, if you've been conditioned to work for or to serve the rocket, then you'll read it a certain way. And if you've been conditioned to serve or to be part of these cult things, you'll read it a certain way. And so it's a way to weed out and get people to find people who aren't totally lost, basically. Am I onto something, or no?
Yeah, I think so. Because one of the things with code would be, and I don't know if it touches in this book. I think you have my book, The Secret Vice.
Yeah.
Different essays and stuff by Tolkien. So like, if you understand like how code works, like, I'm not the best as far as like what all these are, but like, how like poetry goes, where it's like da 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 da.
Yeah,
right?
No, exactly.
And so you can have syllables, and so you can have what seems to be like a child's nursery rhyme, right? But if you understand like the meter that it's supposed to be cadenced in, right? And let's say, I'm pretty sure everyone would recognize we have a northern accent, don't you know?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, you betcha. Right? Different accents and different things are going to have their own natural, I think it's pentameter or rhythmic way of reading it.
Cadence and timbre, and absolutely, yes.
And so these people that start getting kind of delusioned in by these con AI things, right? And the people who are hyper focused, it's like, kind of like reading the Bible too, right? You can read it and it's like, oh, it clearly means this, right?
Right. And it depends on how you were told to think about it is how you read it.
Yeah. And so as it moves into other things, given the way that words are formed and spoken, like how much other meaning would it have? London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady, right? And you'd be like, okay, whatever. But then if you're conditioned to understand that, at the accent of these different syllables was the one that you're actually supposed to pay attention to, and maybe there's a message in it that's like, there was more than one assassin for the Kennedy thing, right? I don't know. Something along the lines where,
And so at first he feels kind of guilty when he thinks he's returning this letter, and then he finds that, like, no, we like fatten up these pigeons so that people kill them all the time. These are food pigeons. This is like but he's not told that immediately. He's told like, oh wow, you're such an honest person. Thank you so much. Do you need a job? Do you want to take this caravan? Be a part of this caravan? It's going to be dangerous. Up the mountain to a settlement we have up in the mountains, which is the monastery, And so then he goes up there, and in that space of going up there, learns about himself, learns about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent. Well, we will I think, explore that some more next week. So this week we established the villain, which is Cain, one of the Outworlders who is trying to utilize and use the virus for his own nefarious purposes, and knows the secret to the Slimies, his greatest enemy. And then the hero's sidekick, which is Cal, who is traveling up to meet the one and only actual, real, and totally legit Charlie. And they're going to save the world somehow. It's going to be great. I can't wait to figure out how that is. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for joining us for this episode of Wait, It Gets Better. We would love to hear from you. If you have any ideas or thoughts about how the story went, we'd love to hear what you think. Our email address is waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com, or you can message us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. We are going to pull next week story elements, I think, right now. We do that live on air now. We change in a bunch of stuff about the story. If anyone wants to write this story, that would be awesome. I would love to hear this story. I think, Seth, I might have AI write a version of this story for me, which would be, it's kind of
but
ironic.
Then they're going to turn, in this one, they're going to turn that to be the good guys.
Well, we'll see. That's how we know if AI has turned bad. Seth, can you pick a number 1 through 9 for me?
7.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ah, yeah, I have wild card. Wild card. Pick a number 1 through 8 for yourself, Seth.
3.
1, 2, 3. Unique vehicle. And then I guess we will. Will you pick a number 1 through 7 for Reed?
7 again.
What was that? 7 again?
Just 7 again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aw, yeah. Reed's got happy ending.
And the joy of this ending, all the other ones have been sad endings.
Yeah, I know. We finally have a happy ending. Maybe that'll be the end of the trilogy. Anyways, thank you, everyone. We will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Listen to all of our episodes. Message us on Twitter. Tell your friends, tell your enemies that just to wait, because it gets better.